Exodus 33. Make this bigger so I can see it. And the Lord said to Moses, the very thing that you have spoken I will do, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name. Moses said, please show me your glory. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you my name, the Lord. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But he said, you cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live. And the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock. And while my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. All right. This is a very peculiar little incident or episode we have here. There's a few things going on. Moses and the Lord seem to have worked out their negotiation, if you will, for saving Israel. You remember that God had said that He was going to destroy Israel because of the whole golden calf incident, and Moses intervened on the people's behalf, and the Lord relented from the disaster which He had planned on them. That was earlier in the chapter. And here at the end, we get Moses saying, please show me your glory. Why does he want to see God's glory? What does that mean? Let's start with that. It's a word we've gotten a lot. Walt?
He's talked about a lot of times, but there's always been a veil.
Sure. Well, and remember, what's it like up here in the cloud, in the mountains? Dark. It's dark, and it being in the clouds means that it is cloudy, fog. They can't see, and so Moses is saying, Lord, I'd like to have a glimpse of your. Let me see your glory. And glory is this word that is used in the Old Testament that really means God's divine presence, His divine, gracious presence with His people. So you had this cloud is called the glory of the Lord that came down on the mountain and then would come down on the tabernacle. And they had the pillar of cloud by day, the pillar of fire by night. This is all glory talk. And this is why, by the way, when we get the song of the angels, glory be to God on high and on earth, peace and goodwill toward men. There's this tie that is made between God's glory and peace for His people. That to be in the presence of God's glory is a good thing, but not a good thing if you're not prepared for it. So what's God's answer to Moses here? Sure, I'll show you my glory. He says, no one can see me and live. No one can handle the unfiltered God. It doesn't sound quite right, but unveiled. Thank you. That sounds a little more pious. Unfiltered is something else. Oh, that's a bad. Erase that. Sorry. That kind of a morning. All right. So no one can see God unveiled, because to be in God's presence is to be in the presence of holiness, and to be in God's presence with sin means death. Jerry, and then Catherine.
I'm just going to link back to the first part of Genesis. So, can we presume that Adam and Eve face before they sinned?
Well, you know, there's some interesting stuff there that I think that the closest that you get is, the closest hint to that, Jerry, is you get in chapter 3, and the Lord God was walking in the garden in the cool of the evening, and he looked for them and did not find them. That's I think the closest that you get there with sort of face-to-face language.
Doesn't Adam say, and I saw you and I was afraid?
Yeah, well, and that's why I say that's precisely the episode we're talking about there in chapter 3. So that now, when Adam is in the presence of God in the garden, he recognizes that it is not good for him to be in God's presence. And so he hides himself.
Related to that, though, is, Adam before sin.
Yes.
And heaven and eternity after sin.
Well, and this is, and all of this is sort of interconnected. Is how do we receive God? That's kind of the question. And what does it take to be in God's presence? What does it mean to be in God's presence? How may I be in God's presence? And there are a number of images in the scriptures that really kind of jump out at that, which I will get to. But Catherine and then Beth.
One of the things that I think is very interesting about this is here is God the Father really describing himself very humanly.
Yes.
I'm going to put my hand over you. You will see my backside. I don't generally think of God the Father as bodily form.
Right.
We do definitely with Jesus.
Right.
But, it kind of harkens us back to the fact that God said he did make us in his image.
Yeah. Well, and
that's
most of the time in artwork, if you have an artistic depiction of God the Father, basically he looks like Gandalf. He looks like an old white guy with a really long beard. That's usually how. But definitely depicted as human.
Yeah.
Now, at the
What are
same
they
time,
doing to the end
we
game?
also have in scriptures this: no one can see God and live, and God is a spirit. So it is a bit confusing, or maybe mysterious. Then.
It seems like throughout the Old Testament there are all these face-to-face encounters
Yeah.
with God, with Abraham, with Gideon.
Yep. Yep.
With Gideon, once he realizes it's God, he's great. This seems fundamentally different.
Well, and all of these different episodes, I mean, you could talk about the burning bush, and another one that we have looked at least once, and we've been doing this Exodus study. Of course, I think we probably read the whole Bible while we were doing this Exodus study. But at least once we have looked at Isaiah 6, the call of Isaiah, when Isaiah has this vision with the angels and holy, 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 and all of this, and he says, "Woe is me, for I am undone, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people with unclean lips." So there's this profound sense that I cannot be in God's presence by myself or directly. That there has to be something has to mediate that. Something has to come between. Rick.
We just finished chapter 24 where the elders ate with
I know that.
I
And-
mean, it
right.
it says,
Right.
they beheld God,
They beheld God and ate and drank.
and they saw the God of Israel.
Yep. And that's why I say it is mysterious and almost a paradox. How is it that they can see God and ate and drank? Are they seeing God in the eating and drinking? I mean, that sounds almost sacramental to me. I don't know about you.
drinking too much.
Yeah, maybe drinking too much. And you do have in Luke chapter 24 in the New Testament, you have in the Emmaus Road episode there where did they saw him in the breaking of the bread. Which is a really interesting phrase there. So you have these theophanies, where God appears, and you have the angel of the Lord, like appearing to Abraham. You've got the burning bush. You've got the elders in chapter 24, but they are halfway up the mountain, and so this is still in this covering, this cloud.
And did Jacob wrestle?
Right, and then you've got Jacob wrestling with the angel of the Lord in, what is that, 28 or 32? Can't remember. Anyway, Pastor Meyer.
When you talk about being in the presence of God, you not only have to deal with the theophanies,
Right?
and I don't really want to put the Shekinah, that pillar of fire, that cloud,
In the same category.
same category as the theophanies. But, yeah, as you were saying, going up the mountain, what do you have? The cloud.
Yep.
There, they can eat in the presence of the Lord. And then, of course, as Catherine was pointing out, we have all those anthropomorphisms to where the Mormon churches decide to come up with the avatar.
Mm-hmm.
A physical body on the Father. Because God does speak to us in terms we can understand. The hand of the Lord, the eye of the Lord, the face of the Lord.
If I found favor in your sight, that kind of language.
But, here it seems to be that full, almighty.
I want to know it all.
More than seeing the sunrise in the morning, looking at the sun right into it, blinding yourself. You cannot look through at the sun. You can look at the theophanies.
Right?
You can see the Shekinah. You can be in the presence of the Lord. You can see the Lord present in the breaking of the bread. But to look directly into God's face as you look the sun, you will not.
What's that?
And that puts all those passages together in a
Right.
nice harmonious way, and you don't like it.
What is that line from the hymn? I want it all and I want it right now. It's probably not a hymn.
Interesting study, though, that probably no one's read it yet. Luther said,
Who?
Luther,
Okay.
remember him? He says, man shall not see me and live, therefore he put before us an image of himself.
Yeah, that's icon language. Sure. And then you fast forward to John chapter 1, where you have right after the verse that we have in church this morning. You have we beheld his glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So there, the only way to behold God's glory is in Jesus. That's kind of a big one. Now there are a few hands. Dennis, Ben, and then Paul. Okay.
The thing that the thread that pulls all of these together is the fact that God decides how he will present.
Yes. Bingo.
He decides. We don't. If we decide, he does. He
Yeah.
decides, and
Yeah.
he decides.
God reveals himself to us. We don't seek him out and figure out how to find him. And so that's kind of what Moses is trying to do here, is say, how can I experience God on my terms? Does that make sense? And once he starts to do that, he's in golden calf territory.
God's really gentle with him.
He really is.
Because he could.
I mean, yeah, exactly. This is kind of this. Yeah, he could be eating gold here, but he's not. Now, Ben, is that?
I was just thinking that, I thought that John 1 passage was referenced to Transfiguration.
That's an interesting question, and I don't see that as contradictory. But we beheld his glory. Yeah, I mean, certainly you can see that, but, I don't know, I'd have to muse on that one. Now, is there another hand? Wolf?
I think of this glory as the same as when Jesus is praying his high priestly prayer. Glorify me with glory that, you know.
Glorify me.
That's kind of, I mean, Christ is ready to go to the cross.
Now, I do think that Dennis was really helpful for us in kind of holding up the God reveals himself as he will. We don't make up ways or find ways for us to seek out God. That's a really helpful distinction there. Jerry.
This made me think of 1 Corinthians 13, and I went and looked at it, and verse 12 refers back to this, where Paul was saying, "For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known." And the Lutheran Study Bible, in their notes, refer back to Exodus 33:11.
Interesting. Yeah, that's Paul talking about how the fullness of the revelation will be at the end, and that now we still don't quite have it all figured out. Probably a good place, and that's okay. So let's go on. So the Lord said, "You cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." And so the Lord kind of makes this, I don't know, like a gentle compromise, something like that, and says to Moses, "All right, there is a cleft in the rock. I'm going to sit you in the cleft in the rock, and I'm going to put my hand," another one of these anthropomorphisms, "I'm going to put my hand before the cleft in the rock, and then I'm going to walk past, and you're going to see my backside." There is just no end of snarkiness that I shall refrain from on that. The closest that Moses gets to seeing, he doesn't see God face to face. Exactly. He sees God's backside. Is as close as he can get.
And what's wrong with God's backside?
And there's nothing wrong with God. Absolutely nothing.
Thinking of hospital gowns.
Yeah, exactly. I was not going to go there, Dennis. You went there. I didn't. I was being quiet, just for once. So, now Luther actually makes quite a lot of the fact that anytime God reveals himself, he reveals himself to us in ways that we can understand, and yet in ways that seem paradoxical, that seem contradictory. And really those words from Hebrews, which we have mentioned a few times in here, keep coming back. In many and various ways, God spoke to his people of old by the prophets, but now in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son. So that God reveals himself in part. Now, if I want to see God, if I want to be in the presence of God, it is through Jesus. Dennis.
Just when Philip asks Jesus, "Show us the Father," and he says, "How long have I been with you?
Yeah.
Have you not seen me?"
Right. If you have seen me, you have seen the Father.
Yeah.
Yep. That is again and again and again. How does God reveal himself? Not how do we play the detective work, etc. All right, we're going to go on to chapter 34. If that's okay with you. I mean, we can stay here at 33 for 6 months, you know. And you know we could. Chapter 34. Moses is still up on the mountain. The Lord said to Moses, "Cut for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and I will write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you broke. Is God being passive aggressive? Be ready in the morning. Come up in the morning to Mount Sinai and present yourself there to me on the top of the mountain. No one shall come up with you, and let no one be seen throughout all the mountain. Let no flocks or herds graze opposite that mountain. So it is really kind of a remarkable little phrase there, which you broke. I don't think he's actually accusing Moses of something here, but simply explaining why is it that they're having to redo these tablets. This is the Ten Commandments 2.0 or something like that. So Moses cut 2 tablets of stone like the first. He rose early in the morning and went up on Mount Sinai as the Lord had commanded him, and he took in his hand 2 tablets of stone. Moses had to have been in really good shape.
Yeah.
He keeps going up and down this mountain and cutting slabs of rock.
How old is this guy by now?
He's 80.
Yeah.
He's 80.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, he's just a young man.
Yeah, exactly. Just all right. Moving on. The Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the 3rd and the 4th generation. Moses quickly bowed his head toward the earth and worshipped. He said, If now I have found favor in your sight, O Lord, please let the Lord go in the midst of us. For it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for your inheritance. All right, so we get the description of what had happened before. The Lord passes before him. That's he's in the cleft of the rock here. The Lord passes before him, and we get this phrase, which we hear numerous places in the scriptures. A God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. And that slow to anger is such an important characteristic of God. You might also add parenting. That slow to anger, recognition of patience and mercy. And how many times in the scriptures, even again wasn't our Old Testament reading this morning, but in Numbers 21, the people get impatient with God, and so they grumble. And we don't like the menu. When you change it for us. So then we get what is really a retelling of what we call the close of the commandments. I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the father to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, etc. from Exodus 20. So this is a slightly retold version. Now, is verse 7 contradictory? Forgiving iniquity, but who will not clear the guilty? Is that a contradiction, or what's going on there? It's the long gospel. It's really exactly what we're talking about there. This is long gospel. That the iniquity is laid upon the people for them to repent and believe the gospel, the forgiveness of sins. So that's the relationship, or the interrelationship here between the two. What about verse 9? Why does he want the Lord to go among the people? What does he mean by that?
weren't listening to him.
Yeah, I think the Lord's getting repetitive, because and Moses is recognizing this stiff-necked, how stiff-necked they are, and that they are not going to get this. And also, by the way,
They need to
these
see that fear.
yeah,
And in order to bow,
yeah,
they need to be afraid. They're not afraid of Moses.
yeah, they're not afraid of Moses, and which actually will come in just a minute with the veil and Moses' bright, shining face. But they need to recognize that forgiveness is not the same as permissiveness. That's really what we're getting at here. Pastor.
And I read this and I hear the request to repeat what the Lord has said he would do,
Mm-hmm.
to go before them as the pillar of fire by night and
Right.
the pillar of smoke by day.
Right. Be in our midst.
But right now, if we think of God showing a localized presence,
Right.
it's that thunderstorm on Sinai.
Right.
It's not yet the tabernacle going as he said he would.
And at this stage, God's promises to Moses and to the people at the beginning of Exodus seem far away. You remember Moses, all of Moses' objections when he was on Mount Sinai before this, in the burning bush. God's answer to all of Moses' objections is, "But I will be with you. But I will be with you." And now they're kind of at the, not quite sure if I want him with me, because that may not end well for me. So Moses is basically saying, we need to know your gracious presence here. We need to know that you're going to be in front of us and behind us and taking care of us. And then Moses basically, we need to know this because we are dense and slow and don't get this message.
And this is still year one.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, they haven't gone anywhere yet. This is months after the Exodus. So we are not talking about a long stretch of time yet. That is absolutely right. All right, let's go on. And he said, "Behold, I am making a covenant. Before all your people I will do marvels, such as have not been created in all the earth or in any nation. And all the people among whom you are shall see the work of the Lord, for it is an awesome thing that I will do with you." And a couple things in here. He's going to do marvels, and no one will have seen anything like it. But I want to point out this word here, with. It isn't simply for. He doesn't say, it is an awesome thing that I will do for you. Certainly that's true. But he says it is an awesome thing that I will do with you. What's the difference? Why does that matter? Yeah, they are working with God. Now, I don't mean this in a they're participating in doing good works, salvation stuff, but rather that they are God's inheritance, that they are going to receive these things from God, and so like the Father and the Son, that the Son in a sense may act as a co-regent with the Father. So the people now are, you remember that language in chapter 19? That you shall be for me a kingdom of what? Priests and kings, rulers. So now he's saying, I am going to do this with you. You are now a part of this, and I am going to do this with you. All right? Pastor.
It's important to recognize that Exodus 19 and 20 are null and void at this point as far as the people are concerned.
Yeah, they've forgotten it.
They have broken the covenant.
Yep.
Exodus 32, was a breaking of the covenant. The covenant is not in effect.
Right. Right.
Thus, in 34, we have to reestablish.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly right. So
Very
they.
much so where Jeremiah, once again, is going to talk about a day when God will reestablish the covenant because they break it again.
Break it again. And there is a real sense there of the daily life of repentance and faith for the Christian. You know, this is this daily baptismal life that that every day God renews His promises to us, even though we break them. Because we sin and God continues to forgive, He continues to give His promises. He continues to say, okay, now this is a new day. This is a new morn, and that this is kind of the new beginning that we as Christians have continually, which is really, that's a remarkable amount of patience on God's part. Because I don't think we're really any less stiff-necked than they are here. Doesn't seem that way to me. All right. Moving on. Observe what I command you this day. Behold, I will drive out before you. I should make one of my elders read this. The Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Take care lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land to which you go, lest it become a snare in your midst. You shall tear down their altars and break their pillars and cut down their Asherah. For you shall worship no other God, for the Lord who is jealous is a jealous God. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and when they whore after their gods and sacrifice to their gods, and you are invited, you eat of his sacrifice. And you take of their daughters for your sons, and their daughters whore after their gods, and make your sons whore after their gods. But he's kind of putting it to them here, I'd say, and holding and saying, do not make a deal with the devil. Do not say, I'm going to let this sort of coexist, because I do not. I am a jealous God. I told them. I've told this story a few times of the Garrison Keillor shtick. This is not exactly the same, but you can kind of get the idea. Where you know Garrison Keillor, like Lake Wobegon, Prairie Home Companion, and all that. Where in this little town in Minnesota, the mixed marriage is the Lutheran and the Catholic, and how hard that is, etc. And Keillor had a remarkable insight on that and said it's so easy in these cases to make it so that the children of these families grow up to respect both religions but believe neither. And think on that as kind of an interesting commentary and the challenges that we face. I'm not meaning this as a criticism of anyone, but simply this is the realities that we live in this world. Is that we are kind of we're faced continually with these challenges of what does it mean to be a people of faith, and what's the difference between respecting and actually believing. Lots of things to think about there. So God warns them against making a covenant with the people of the land. So he's basically saying you can't have a covenant with me and with them. This is a one or the other. You can't have both, because if you try to have both, your sons and daughters will intermarry, and you will end up whoring after their gods, which is a pretty vivid description on his part of the danger of what is going to happen here. Rick.
I was trying to go back and look at several versions to see what 34:10 said, as a, whether it was for you,
Yeah.
with you.
Yep.
It seems to be 50/50.
Yeah, it's about half and half. I would, that's kind of what I would expect, is that I'd have to look at it in Hebrew, but that could go either way. But there is not simply a I'm doing something to you, but there is a sense of participation that is in there. All right, I'm going to go on. You shall not make for yourselves any gods of cast metal. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread as I commanded you, at the time appointed in the month of Abib, for in the month of Abib you came out of Egypt. All that open the womb are mine, all your male livestock, the firstborn of cow and sheep. The firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, or if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and none shall appear before me empty-handed. So this is a renewal of what they had before. This is Passover talk. This is the newborn lamb that redeems all of the firstborn, thinking the angel of death, the 10th plague, and the like. Okay? Rick.
It's not really okay for me in verse 17, because this specifically says don't make gods of cast metal.
Yes?
And when we looked at it the first time, we saw idols and gods could be things, anything we put before God. It
Sure.
might be the carpet in a house.
Sure. Sure.
So
And this is not nullifying Exodus 20. And I guess my read on that, Rick, would be this is specifically in the post-golden calf context. That is exactly what they had just done, is made a god of cast metal. And so this is saying, just in case we are unclear, don't do that. You know how sometimes if you have a general law, once you get down into the weeds of the particulars, it is easier to kind of try to weasel your way out of things. And here, this is my read of it. I'm certainly willing to be wrong, but here this is explicitly speaking against what they had just done with the golden calf. Jared.
Is this a two-way covenant now?
This part is two-way. You bet. You bet. The one-way covenant is the covenant with Abraham in Genesis 12 and 15 and 17. I will give you the land stuff. Yep.
So God is going to do these awesome, wonderful things for them, and their part of it is not to make
It's to
worship
hear His word and to do what His word says. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And this is again, basically, you read the book of Judges, which I'm doing in some of our Bible classes right now, and what you're going to get is what happens when they don't listen. What happens when they don't listen is that these awesome things that God is going to do with them don't happen, and everything collapses. All right. 6 days you shall work, but on the 7th day you shall rest. In plowing time and in harvest you shall rest. You shall observe the Feast of Weeks, the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the year's end. 3 times in the year shall all your males appear before the Lord God, the God of Israel. For I will cast out nations before you and enlarge your borders. No one shall covet your land when you go up to appear before the Lord your God 3 times in the year. So when these 3 feasts happen, God is not going to let their enemies take advantage. That's what that's saying. Because you can imagine gathering everybody together in one place 3 times a year would be something that their enemies could easily exploit, especially since they can figure out when it is. But he's saying, nope, I will take care of it. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with anything leavened, or let the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover remain until the morning. The best of the first fruits of your ground you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. I don't remember what that's about, honestly. I'm not
So
even.
magical.
A culinary vice. All right. And the Lord said to Moses, write these words, for in accordance with these words I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. So he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate bread nor drank water. And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. Interesting.
10 words.
The 10 words, thank you.
Is that just milk or all dairy products?
Says the culinary artist. Fortunately for you, Chris, we are on the other side of this covenant. So if you feel the need to boil goat in milk, I'll let you off. All right. Yeah. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, as he came down from the mountain, Moses did not know that the skin of his face shone, because he had been talking with God. Aaron and all the people of Israel saw Moses, and behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come near him. Remember, we were talking about this before. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the leaders of the congregation returned to him, and Moses talked with them. Afterward, all the people of Israel came near, and he commanded them all that the Lord had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. And when Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face. So here, we clearly are getting some images that we see in Transfiguration, which we had a couple weeks ago. You can see Moses, remember Jesus with his face shining and clothes white as lightning, etc. So Moses, when he comes down from the mountain, his face is shining, so that after he comes down from the mountain, he has to be covered. And this image too is used as a picture of the fact that the people later cannot receive God. So the veil is used, that's in Hebrews, right? In Hebrews is used as an image of the people can only see God through a veil. They don't get they can't receive the whole thing. And without Jesus. That's the picture in Hebrews. This little episode is portrayed in a lot of different ways. These are a few of them. I couldn't actually find any good images of the veil. When we think of a veil, I'm thinking of like a bridal veil or something like that. But I could not find any really good descriptions or pictures of this veil or what this veil might look like. This was the best that I could find, and I didn't really like that one all that much. So, but this is why you will often see in artistic depictions of Moses having this bright light coming out of him. I think that this is also where the idea of a halo or a nimbus comes from. This shining kind of comes out, starts out here. Ben.
This would be like the horns.
Yes, and this is also where you get the horns, because that I'll have to look it up. But let me pull up that image that I used at the beginning here. You look at this. this image there of Moses. Moses looks kind of like Satan there. He's got these little horns, and that's because of a mistranslation of that shining. So this is very, very common in artistic works starting from about the 7th century through the 15th century. So if you look at Michelangelo's statue of Moses, he's got a horn, etc. All right. I think that we have done good work here this morning. Let's close with benediction. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Amen. Where is the sign-up sheet?